In a biography of Mary Shelley, I was really surprised to find how many American revolutionaries, Franklin and Paine, if I remember correctly, were hanging out with the bad French Revolution guys. Does this undercut your arguments differentiating the two revolutions, American Revolution and French Revolution?
No, because I think that's a valid insight, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it doesn't undercut the argument, because all the currents, all the bad, nasty currents that came to the surface in the French Revolution
Mm-hmm.
and dominated it and steered it were present and existent in the American Revolution. They just weren't dominant. Okay? So at the American Constitutional Convention, there were 55 men there. 50 of them were Orthodox Trinitarian Christians. Now, out of the founders, people that you could say were influential to the founding, there were three, I could name three common names: Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin, who I think who would have fit somewhere in the French Revolution world. Okay, Thomas Jefferson was sympathetic to the French Revolution when it first started, but I think he was he would have been sort of a moderate. If you transplanted him over into France, he wouldn't have been part of the terror, but he was sympathetic when it first started. Thomas Paine was very much someone who'd fit right into the French Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Franklin was a mixed bag. He had certainly tendencies that way. So the radical revolutionaries, it didn't plop into the world right before the French Revolution. There were indications of it before, and there were indications of it before in our setting. But they were by no means were they in any kind of controlling position. So it's become commonplace for us to say, well, the founding fathers were deists. No, they weren't. You could. Benjamin Franklin I would call Benjamin Franklin a quasi-deist, and I would call Jefferson a quasi-deist, and Jefferson had to hide it in order to get elected.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the colonies were very overtly Christian and Orthodox, and there were deistic currents that had to function undercover.
Right.
And then historians can go back and find what Jefferson said in a letter to somebody, and plump that up as though that were common knowledge. No, it wasn't common knowledge at all.
Who were the figureheads or names that represent that Orthodox? Like if you wanted to say balance out Jefferson and Franklin, look over here at who would you put in that list?
I would put Witherspoon, who signed the Declaration of Independence and who came over from Scotland to teach at Princeton, and was the instructor for a number of the founders, like Madison.
Okay.
So Madison, Washington, in the early years, basically the two-party system is not encoded into the Constitution, but the way the Constitution is set up, it invites the two-party system. So we've always had two parties with occasionally a third party rising and displacing another one. But in the first years of our republic, George Washington, who was a Federalist, was the first president. Adams was the second president. He was also a Federalist and represented sort of the old order of Christendom. Thomas Jefferson was a Republican, not a modern Republican, but there were two parties, Federalist and Republican. Jefferson was the third president, and his more agrarian approach was akin to the Federal. There were differences of opinion between the Federalists and the Republicans, obviously. The Republicans, I think, were closer to the French Revolution, but not that close. But it was detectable. So some of the men that we would say, some of the anti-federalists like Patrick Henry, some of the Federalists like Madison, Washington, Adams would be representatives of an intact Christendom.
Okay. Why is it though that, in retrospect, like now, Jefferson, Franklin, Paine, these are the guys that, well, at least Jefferson and Franklin particularly, those are the big names.
Right.
Is that a selective retelling of the importance of who was there, or?
I'm not a big conspiracy buff, and I don't think any one person was saying "blah ha ha" as they planned this. But there has certainly been a drift. So we used to celebrate George Washington's birthday, and then it became President's Day, and then there's been an inching away from certain individuals. Now, and even there's it's very interesting because I might have some of this wrong, but Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were political enemies, political adversaries, and they fought each other during their political life. But then after they were both out of politics, they renewed a friendship and had a long correspondence. And they both died on the same day, and it was the 4th of July.
Oh, okay.
It was pretty sure that, and it was, I don't remember, it might have been the 50th anniversary of the 4th of July,
Oh, wow.
And it was, they were corresponding with each other warmly, and so they were political adversaries who made friends again, because I think a unique American settlement was consolidating, right? So when the American settlement went in this direction, a very distinct direction from where the French Revolution went, I think that was the basis for a rapprochement between someone like Jefferson and someone like Adams. If I could recommend something, John Quincy Adams, John Adams' son, who was later president, translated a book by a German named Gens, and the name of the little booklet is The French and American Revolutions Compared. And it's a fantastic little book. And the fact that John Quincy Adams translated and published this book said, our revolution is nothing like what theirs was. I think it's very true.
Thank you.